The big story on Monday night out of the NFL, the Titans are finalizing a deal to make Robert Saleh their new head coach. Saleh was the defensive coordinator in San Francisco this past season. He was 20-36 as head coach of the Jets from 2021 to 2024. He was fired 5 games into his 4th season in New York, looking to get it right in Nashville. Back here with 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and B-Mac.
Yep.
Robert Saleh to the Tennessee Titans. Your initial reaction is what?
Well, I like the fit for both sides. When you look at what didn't go right there for Robert Saleh in New York, there was a lot that was circulating around him that led to a disappointing opportunity there in New York. And heck, they still haven't gotten things right within that organization. But then when you look at the Tennessee Titans, they kind of attacked this situation differently, Hakeem, than what they did previously. Remember when they brought in Brian Callahan to be the head coach, he was more of an offensive-minded coach, and of course that didn't work out. So I think they kind of going back to what they did with Mike Vrabel when they hired him, being more of a defensive-oriented coach and trying to set that foundation, get that foundation started on the defensive side, and then, of course, find quality offensive staffers, particularly the OC, to help develop Cam Ward. And when you look at what he's done in terms of just the structure, I think they believe that Robert Saleh can be that piece that they need to create that successful winning-like structure in the organization, something they've been missing for quite some time.
Yeah, that's going to be key, right? Because you got a defensive-mind-headed coach in Robert Saleh trying to develop Cam Ward, right, in year 2. You remember in the preseason, Cam Ward said our offense was mid, and it made headlines, and they could never really get going. Well, it was worse than mid all season. They finished 30th in points per game, less than 17 points per game. When you talk about developing him, what do they need to do with Cam Ward? They really have to go get more pieces because it's not just Cam Ward.
Well, they got to go get an offensive coordinator who's had experience with successful offensive play in the National Football League, who also has experience working with the quarterback. Now, when you look at the vacancies that are still available, there are a slew of opportunities, right, that have to be figured out. So if I'm Robert Saleh, I got to look to see who is available, who is a guy that I trust, not only to get the most out of our offense, but to get the most out of our quarterback. Because in the National Football League, when you don't have quarterback production, it feels like you have to drive 150 yards to score. Forget the 100 yards. It's 150 because it's harder. It's a struggle. And we've seen that throughout the National Football League with teams that are very, very good and teams that are very, very bad. It usually starts or stops with the inability to get the most out of your quarterback. And we've seen some flashes from Cam Ward. I understand it was a very, very difficult year because of the lack of protection and just not having talent around him. But we've seen flashes of him doing some pretty good things, and that's something that you can build upon if you get the right coach in place to coach him.
Do you like the hire of Robert Saleh over Matt Nagy, and how do you grade the hire for the Tennessee Titans?
I like the hire, and I believe the Tennessee Titans valued Robert Saleh more so than any other coach they interviewed, because if you look at this process for Tennessee, the Arizona Cardinals are right there as well. I think Arizona requested a second interview for Robert Saleh. So it's basically between Arizona and Tennessee for Robert Saleh. So if you look at what he did, he accepted the Tennessee Titan job, and I think that was more so of him trusting and believing in Cam Ward than not knowing what the quarterback situation would be in Arizona with Kyler Murray, what they would do moving forward. So for Tennessee, I like it because I felt like what didn't go right in New York with the Jets for Robert Saleh was more so about what was surrounding him than him as a coach. So this is a second opportunity. Let's see, can he right some of his wrongs for what didn't happen in New York and get things rolling with Tennessee, because clearly, I really feel like when they fired Vrabel, that was a mistake, and now we're seeing that no question that was a mistake. So they're trying to correct their wrongs as well.
So you're going to give it like a B+?
Yeah, I'll give it a B+.
Okay.
I'll give it a B.
There we go.
B+.
Jets, going to see if it'll work out for him here.
Yeah.
Because it didn't work out for the Jets. So now you're thinking as a Titans fan, why is it going to work out for us? Well, you got to hope that maybe the retread works for Tennessee with Robert Saleh. They have the 4th overall pick in the upcoming NFL draft. They've been mocked to take Reuben Bain Jr., who just played in the national championship for Miami. So Robert Saleh off the board. 4 head coaches hired. Saleh the latest. Still plenty of openings. The Browns, Cardinals, Raiders, Ravens, Steelers, and the Bills. the latest with an opening. And look, when a head coach or an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator is hired, we will have instant reaction right here on CBS Sports HQ.
Pittsburgh guy trying to get things right. And one thing we know the Steelers have always loved is continuity, right? A guy like Mike McCarthy can help do that after Mike Tomlin's exit. Plus, you've got to figure out what you're doing offensively in Pittsburgh, because that is really holding them back in a big way. They couldn't move the ball at all against Houston in the playoffs, but that wasn't a one-game problem. They've had issues all season long, having consistency, being an offensive team. Plus, they've got to figure out who's going to play quarterback for them going forward. So that's not just a Mike McCarthy issue. If indeed he were to be the head coach, it would be Omar Khan as the general manager and the rest of that organization. What are they going to do at the quarterback position? Because every year, it's a one-year rental, it feels like. So who's going to be that person to take them forward? But Mike McCarthy can help you build an offense, and that's something Pittsburgh sorely needs.
So that's something that Pittsburgh was sorely needing. What about Buffalo if he's paired up with Josh Allen, Charles? What would you think Mike McCarthy would be like in Western New York?
I think he'd be terrific there, because you've got to come in now. Remember, this is a Buffalo team that has a lot of veterans on the team. So they're going to be saying, okay, hold a second. We just lost our head coach on a very, very tough ball game in overtime. We've been so close so many times. We have a rapport there. He runs our defense. Who's going to step into the room and be able to do that? Mike McCarthy has that veteran presence, has a Super Bowl ring, can work with Josh Allen, but I think he can work with the veterans of the whole unit as well.
Given that Super Bowl ring, Mike McCarthy will be a popular target for multiple teams here. Rand, how was Clint Kubiak and what he's done at Pacific Northwest be potentially a fit here for the Bills, you think?
I just think his history as an offensive coordinator and the scheme in which he comes from, it will be great for a guy like Josh Allen. The way they call this offense, being able to have the nakeds and the boots and some of the quarterback design runs, I think will really help Josh Allen out and be able. And you don't necessarily need high-end receivers in this scheme. You just need guys that have run after the catch ability, and I think Buffalo has that. Now, here's where I want to dot connect a little bit, Tommy T. I was recently watching this John Elway doc, and it kind of chronicled his career. And John Elway, as a young quarterback, he was lauded as one of the greatest quarterbacks prospects to ever come out at that time. Much in the way a lot of people see Josh Allen right now. Their careers to date have been very similar. John Elway did have a Super Bowl appearance by this time, but both had been MVPs and not much success throughout the playoffs. And what happened when they brought in Mike Shanahan, you saw John Elway's career really take off. And what tree does Clint Kubiak comes from? He comes from that Shanahan-Kubiak system, which I think would really help Josh Allen. So Clint Kubiak, a young offensive mind that I think this is the direction I truly believe that the Buffalo Bills will go towards, because, and I'll say the reason why I think they're going to stick with the offensive side of the ball. They will stick with young. Charles had mentioned the continuity and what Pittsburgh really covets, right? So if you hire another defensive-minded head coach like McDermott was, you run the risk of having a high-quality young offensive coordinator call plays, be able to create enough recognition behind their name to get a potential head coaching job and then move on, which now kind of disrupts that continuity. But if you have an offensive-minded coach who will lean towards calling the plays, at least you know if people leave, the system will stay the same for Josh Allen in that offense.
I can vouch for that Elway doc, by the way. It's very good, done well, kind of chronicles, makes you remember about that 80s version of John Elway, which had those Super Bowl appearances and losses.
And he could hit the curveball.
And he could hit the curveball. Talk about two-way stars. He was certainly one of them.
He was all of that.
Doing very well for himself out at Stanford in the farm before going pro, and we all know how that certainly worked out. Charles, you heard Rand talk about if the Bills deviate from an offensive-minded head coach and stick with something that they know in Sean McDermott. How would Lou Anarumo potentially fit out there in Buffalo?
Yeah, that would go obviously against what Rand is talking about because of that continuity. But I think you need an adult in the room. And one thing about